Hi, it's Pastor Jeff Elliott with our sermon for uh, Pentecost 15, Matthew chapter 18, and our sermon is on forgiveness. The central teaching of Lutheranism is justification by grace through faith and not by works of law, lest any person should boast. The belief that God forgives all of our sins unconditionally, based not on anything that we have done, but based only on what Jesus has done for us on the cross. But when Jesus talks about forgiveness, he always pairs God's forgiveness of us with our forgiveness of others. Considering that this goes against our central Lutheran teaching, we should at least be asking ourselves the question, what is Jesus up to when he does this? Or why do we as Lutherans go against what Jesus taught? Of course, we know we're going by what Paul taught in his letter to the Romans and in other places. But still, we should say, why does Jesus always pair these two aspects of forgiveness together? Is he trying to guilt us or frighten us into forgiving others? What's going on? Well, there seems to be something of guilt and fear in our parable for today. It's about a person who owes a lot of money to a king. He's a slave. He's forgiven a great debt. He goes out and immediately finds someone who owes him a small amount of money, grabs him by the throat and says, "Pay me what you owe me." His fellow slaves go and rat him out to the king, who decides that he is going to throw him in jail until every penny is paid, every cent of his debt. It's kind of the introduction of the concept of a penitential hell, a purgatorial hell. It was the early Christian concept of hell was purgatorial. You're in for a certain amount until the last bit is paid of your debt. But in any event, we can push that aside for the moment and look at the parable in which he's saying, it seems to be saying, I forgave you a small fortune. You can't overlook a few bucks this other guy owes you. I died on the cross for you is what stands behind this. I gave my life. Can't you overlook the nasty thing that someone said about you on Facebook? You owe me so much, God seems to be saying. Can't you do just this little thing for me? That's all well and good. But sometimes the little thing that needs to be forgiven is not a little thing. Sometimes it's a very big thing indeed. Even this year, in the midst of the pandemic, we remember 19 years ago, images of buildings burning, of people grieving for their loved ones who perished during the terrorist attack on September the 11th, 2001. As one man recalls concerning the loss of his brother, he tried to comfort himself with thoughts that his brother had gone to a better place. But as the years passed, the man honestly admitted he was not so sure. He began to wonder if the better place for his brother wouldn't have been with his family, watching his children grow up. And as we witness such testimony, we remember that not every sin committed against us is small. Not every sin committed against us is easy to overlook. There is great evil in this world and great suffering. Suffering that is not suddenly made trivial by the death of Jesus on the cross, by what Jesus has done for us. But maybe that's just what lies behind Jesus' advice to forgive. Perhaps Jesus is simply helping us to see the self-evident truth that the evil in this world cannot be defeated by our adding to it retaliation, an eye for an eye. What we think of as justice does not, in the end, combat evil. Oh, it might balance the scales. It might make us feel better when we exchange blow for blow, when we hold on to our anger, when we retaliate, when we make certain that people get what's coming to them. But it doesn't reduce the evil in the world. It adds to it. It feeds it. And it links us to an evil chain of vengeance that has no end until someone makes the conscious choice to end it. It's about the same topic as the Oresteia, Orestes in Greek mythology, who avenges his father Agamemnon by killing his mother, Clytemnestra. She kills her husband for killing his daughter, sacrificing his daughter in this system of horrible things. He sacrifices her to the gods for a better wind before sailing off for Troy. She doesn't really die in another version of the story in the play, but that's beside the point, because the Furies come after Orestes for killing his mother, and there can be no end to it until finally they do decide to have a trial, and Pallas Athena in this story puts an end to it in what becomes Athens, and by introducing the jury trial into the world, because the chain of vengeance has no end until someone makes the conscious choice to end it. Jesus seems to be telling us that forgiveness is God's way of combating evil. Jesus seems to be telling us that we can either transmit our suffering, that we can pass it on to the next unfortunate soul, or we can choose to transform our suffering. This is what we see in the symbol of the cross, in the Christian story. The contention is that all evil ends in the suffering of God. And in spite of that suffering, God chooses to end it. God chooses to forgive. That's why when in one version of the gospel story, when Jesus is dying on the cross, he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." God chooses to break the chain and get on with life. So should we.